This is Ask KJAX, and this week's question comes from John. I saw this house, and it has an assumable loan with interest rate of 3.875%. What does that mean exactly, and why would that be an option here?
So the way an assumable loan works is that you go in and you see a house, and in this case, the house that John is interested in is $800,000.
Okay.
And let's say that the current homeowner owes $500,000. You can now assume that $500,000 mortgage at that 3.875.
So what happens with the remaining $300,000?
That's where the problem comes in, because generally speaking, the buyer needs to have that $300,000 in cash, plus whatever their closing costs, and if you're in a DMV, transfer and recordation taxes.
Right.
So you need to have all this money to add to the mortgage to that $500,000. Another way is a combination of your personal funds and a second mortgage. And that's when it becomes tricky. In all of these scenarios, the seller's lender has to approve this. And a lot of times they won't approve it if there's another mortgage, because as we know, second mortgages are risky. And that's how we got into all the trouble in 2008, 2009. And so the people that want to go that route, they number one have to make sure that the seller doesn't have a bunch of equity in the property, because you're coming up with the difference. And secondly, you need to have some cash. You can't just assume a mortgage and you have 3.5% down to go FHA. It doesn't work that way.
Is there any concerns for the seller who's putting up an advertising an assumable mortgage?
Absolutely. The seller has to be very, very careful that they process what's called a release request from their lender, so that they're no longer attached to it. Because a lot of times people will have a VA loan, for example. They have very low interest rates from a few years back, and someone assumes it, but it still counts against their eligibility. And so that's a problem. So you want to make sure the seller does process a release request.
Well, I hope that helps. A lot of people come to us asking about, does this property have an assumable loan, and get all excited about it. There's a lot to know about assumable loans.
Yes, and it works in certain cases, and other times it's not the best option.
So again, keep sending in your questions. We're here to help.